Okay guys, today we're taking a look at a number of items that came in a package from NF Strike. And what we have is several attachments commonly referred to in the hobby as the Fraudulus attachments, a pun based off of essentially a knockoff Modulus set that was available. And this is a black variant, which is kind of interesting. The other colors, or the originals, are available as well. They sent me these black ones. But they do have a, essentially a Nerf counterpart that they're based off of originally. Some being more loosely interpreted than others, but so I guess for starters, the quality itself is not like super great. They're not bad, but just picking the parts up and feeling them, they do have the kind of that cheaper plastic. Just the pieces kind of feel thin. Construction actually isn't awful though. I was actually really surprised. The some of the seams are a little gapped or whatever, but as far as the fit and finish and the compatibility and stuff, I was actually pleasantly surprised with. So I guess for starters, we'll just work from the top. This is essentially the sniper barrel. Kind of interesting. The back half, the actual attachment part, is separated into two halves side to side, but the main barrel and the kind of flash suppressor piece is molded top to bottom, so the seam runs this way, which is just kind of interesting. I was pleasantly surprised to see that the bore of the barrel is actually, well, it's hard to tell because it's so long, is actually significantly larger than what we generally see from Nerf branded attachments. In fact, so much so, I'm looking at this one, it's almost the size of a C battery, the bore is. So it's actually probably close to what we see on like long strikes and stuff like that, to where you can essentially run a longer cosmetic barrel without the barrel drag issues that we have generally. So that's kind of a nice feature on their part. It's one of those things where if you like the style, then you kind of have to make your decision there. One thing I did notice though, it's rather blocky on the back, which means you're kind of limited on the blasters that actually work good on it. Obviously you wouldn't want to see it on a Strife because it's just kind of, like I said, it's just kind of blocky on there. The attachments do seem to be a hair loose, just not abnormally so. Because there's always tolerance issues on anything mass-produced, especially Nerf stuff. These just tend to be kind of on the looser end of that snugness, and it kind of varies blaster to blaster. That was on a Strife, but on say this long shot, it's a really nice snug fit and latches on really securely. And this is actually, I've tried it on pretty much every blaster I had, which I think is pretty much everything that's all in-strike compatible. And this is probably the most aesthetically pleasing and more, most natural looking. As far as the width stays pretty even to the rest of the shell. Everything seems, if this was part of your aesthetic or whatever, it would be the most natural looking, I think. One thing I did notice on these parts is that the little locking button is a bit different, where, let's see if I can get this on the camera, if it'll focus for me, probably not. The button itself on the Nerf pieces are rounded. Let's see if we focus for me. Buttons on the Nerf pieces are kind of rounded, just kind of a semicircle there, but the pieces from NF Strike have a flat top on them. So when that little tab rocks into the corresponding hole or little port on the blaster itself, where the Nerf pieces just kind of rock out, these ones actually snap in and they're really secure. It does take a little bit sometimes, just because I think there's a little bit of a tolerance issue there again, to where it takes a little bit to get it to twist on all the way to where this will attach. But once it's in there, it's actually surprisingly secure. That was actually one of those things that at first kind of looked at it as an issue, but it actually is a lot more positive, because it does actually hold the piece in place a lot better. Moving down to what's essentially the little extension, essentially. It's a barrel attachment with a barrel attachment ability. This was the piece I was kind of most skeptical about, but actually I really like it. As far as aesthetics, actually I think works pretty good for something that's you don't really need a lot of length on, whether you just want it for looks or if you're just covering up a brass barrel or something like that. I really kind of like that look. And there again, it shares the same large bore that the other barrel has. In fact, it actually can fit a C battery through it, which is fairly significant. Also, a nice touch is the end of the connector is slightly beveled, so it looks less clunky, I guess, where this is just kind of a brick sticking out of the end. This is a little more subtle. Has a nice knurled detail here. It seems to have a lot better shape overall. As far as I would actually prefer it over the Nerf piece. It's a little bulkier. It doesn't seem quite so, I guess, kind of small and anemic. That's my personal preference. I did notice, however, that the top rail has the little locking tab button. The bottom was empty. There's nothing there to where there's just nothing there to stop it. Whereas the top piece has, came with the button, and it even had a stop on the back, and actually locks in pretty securely. But whether that was oversight on the installation or what, I'm not sure. Another thing I noticed, where the attachment does seem to be a hair looser than what we usually expect from Nerf blasters, and I think it's because the muzzle itself is slightly oversized to where it's actually a rather snug fit to get other more Nerf attachments on there, which isn't a bad thing, because it actually, like this, since there's no it actually locks on there fairly tight. So not a bad thing, it's just a thing to note that it whether that's the extra paint that's causing the issue or just an actual dimensional issue in the production. That's yet to be seen, I suppose. But assuming that the regular production pieces have this other piece, then this is actually one that I would probably order in the regular kind of white variant that's available. Moving on to the scope, it's actually a really, really close representation of the Modulus piece with just a few variants, but it is dimensionally pretty much identical, height, width, proportions, and everything. And it has a few different details. Actually has a little bit more detail. It has kind of these little ribs here and a couple little, I don't know if you want to call them simulated fasteners or whatever. There again, it's one of those things where I suppose it depends on the style you're going for. If you're building some kind of cosmetic build and you were going to paint one of these anyway, then you might as well start with one that's already painted, that has a little bit different aesthetic and gives you a little more of a unique finish or look. Looking down the scope itself, they're pretty much the same. They both have kind of molded in crosshairs. As far as visibility, it's pretty much the same. It actually blocks a lot of your visibility, but it is worth noting. Now on the rail attachments, it's not a separate piece that's spring-loaded like the Nerf stuff. It is a solid molded-in piece, or not even a separate piece. It's just all molded together. So that's one thing to note, that you can't like sneak it on the side like you can with some Nerf attachments, where you kind of twist them and pop them off. It's very much just has to slide on the one way and pops in. The retention is hard to say. It's depends, rail to rail. There again, kind of that tolerance issue. I wouldn't count on them sticking on everything very well, because the little button here that locks in is actually fairly small. But they're going to kind of depend on whether the blaster you're putting it on has paint or something like that. But it is worth noting that it is a molded-in piece with kind of a set dimension. Moving on, I thought this was going to be pretty much a straight-across replica, but it is slightly undersized. It's looks like about a half-inch shorter or so, and has this kind of weird little thing on top or whatever. Basic aesthetics are the same, but even though it's styled after a scope, it is a flashlight with a button on the back that is kind of a eerie bluish purplish glow, which is kind of cool, but I don't know how usable it would be. It doesn't really cast a whole lot of light. It would be more of a cosmetic piece, but I do kind of like it as far as using it for more of a cosmetic attachment, whether you use the light gimmick or not. There again, it's up to you if that's I wouldn't buy it recommending it like, that's a sweet light, look at this sweet light. But it is a nice appearing cosmetic piece. It does have some nice detail. The molding is rather crisp, which is nice. Overall, I can't really make judgment on the original paint application. These were in kind of a Modulus-esque, kind of white color scheme. These have been apparently just painted black, but the paint that has been applied is rather thin, which is good because it didn't fill in the details or anything. But even just pulling them out of the package, I don't know if it shows up here, but there is paint rubbed off. You can see the white showing through on pretty much all of the corners. There's apparently, this panel here was orange because there's orange showing through there. There's orange showing through on the socket, where the attachment goes. Lots of wear on the rails just from fitting these a few times. So I don't know if I'd be crazy about the black pieces. I'm not the whole, paint everything black because it's tactical and aggressive and stuff. That's not my style. I think I would lean towards the original, original finish, the unpainted, painted ones, if at all possible. However, these are the ones supplied to me. As far as the pieces themselves, though, I've actually been pleasantly surprised. I was really skeptical when these were first offered to me, and I was going to pass it up, but I was honestly curious about the quality of the pieces themselves. And while it's not Nerf, definitely not Nerf, it's not that name brand quality. They actually, I was pleasantly surprised. These are pieces that I would likely purchase a few more. Like I said, I was actually, there again, pleasantly surprised at how much I liked this when I was the most skeptical about it, and would actually use this as a cosmetic piece, as well as this little scope light. I would probably go ahead with one of these. It would give you an opportunity to either cut off the kind of scopish looking part back here, and it would make just kind of a nice looking little light or attachment. I mean, you could replace the internals with whatever. Oh, I just realized there's not even a lens here. It's just the open LED hanging out with a reflector there. Interesting. Anyway, I don't know if these. I assume these weren't disassembled at all when they were painted. It was just fogged on over the top. You can see the orange. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but you can't see orange around. There's apparently room for a lens in there. Huh. Interesting. Which causes me to wonder if the original white version still has a lens in it. Interesting. But no, like I said, that this piece probably doesn't interest me personally the most because I don't do the sniper thing. That being said, I will likely use this in a future project, as well as the kind of long-range-ish looking scope. For being knockoff parts, the quality I would say is acceptable. The paint application of the black variety I'm not exactly thrilled with, and I'm probably going to try to see if I can find a mild solvent or something, because I don't think it would take much to get this stuff off. So, but I guess final judgment, better than expected, definitely not name brand. Basically, essentially, you're getting what you pay for, but there's a few gems, I guess, in these. So if you're interested in any of these, I will have the links in the description below. Like I said, personally, I would probably aim for the original white variants, if at all possible, but I don't know if that is limited availability, or if they just had a special deal on these, or what the situation was. But that being said, if you want them, I'll have the links below, and we will see you next time.